Hello and welcome to Garb Studio. In this tutorial, we are going to talk about another basic Linux command which will really useful when you are in Linux environment. So, without further ado, let's get started. The chmod command is used to change the permissions of files and directories. Chmod stands for change mode. It allows users to specify who can read, write, and execute a file or directory. Permissions are represented by three categories: read, write, and execute. Read allows a user to view the contents of a file or list the contents of a directory. Write allows a user to modify the contents of a file or create, delete, or rename files within a directory. Execute, for files, allows a user to execute the file if it's a program or script. For directories, allows a user to access the contents of the directory. These permissions are assigned to three categories of users. Owner, or user, the user who owns the file or directory. Group, the group associated with the file or directory. Others, all other users who are not the owner and not in the group. Let's view the long list of the current directory with ls-ltr to see the file and directory permissions. In here, first rwx set is represent user and the second set is represent the group and the last set is represent others. This mode argument can be expressed in two different ways: symbolic mode and absolute mode. I'll start with symbolic mode. In this method, we use a combination of letters and operators to set or define permissions. I'll create a directory using mkdir command to demonstrate this. If we check the permission for newly created directory, you can see by default it will assign full permission to user and group. But for others it will not allow write permission. Now, let's check default permission for files we are creating. Let's create a file with touch command and see the permission. You'll notice that the default permissions are different for files compared to directories. For files, execute permission is not assigned to any category of users. Read and write permissions are assigned for the user and group, while only read permission is assigned for others. Now, let's see some examples for symbolic mode. I'll add write and execute permissions for others to the text file we created by using chmod space o+wx space and file name. Let's check with the ls-ltr command. You can see that write and execute permissions have been added to the others category. Let's remove write permission for all three categories: user, group, and others. This way you can add or remove permission for multiple categories. Now, let's add write and execute permission for owner. Owner means user, and write permission for group and others. In this way you can add or remove separate permissions for multiple categories in one command. Let's say I want to set read and write permissions for the user, while only execute permission for the group and others. We can set the permissions with equal operator as this way. Use chmod space u equals rw, comma, go equals x, space, file name. Now, let's check to if the changes we made have affected to the file. You can see it's affected. With chmod a+ or a- command we can change permissions for all three categories at once. Let's see how it works. First, I will remove write permission for the user. Now, I will use chmod, space, +w, space, file name, to add write permission to all three categories at once. Now, let's check with ls-ltr command if it works. You can see that it has changed the permissions as we expected. Now, let's learn about numeric, or absolute mode. In this method, we specify permissions using a 3-digit number. The digits are calculated by adding the values of the individual permissions. For example, if a user has all read, write, and execute permissions, then it is represented with the number 7, as you can see by adding the numeric values. If a user has only read and execute permissions, then it will be represented with the number 5. Likewise, permissions will be represented in numeric values in this absolute mode. Now, let's see some examples for absolute mode. What is chmod 777? Let's check it with our demo file. Now, let's check with ls-ltr command. Here you can see, this command gives all three permissions to everyone. Now let's check chmod 755. Again, let's check with ls-ltr command. In this case, the owner can read, write, and execute the file, while group and other can only read and execute a file. As this way you can change values as per your expectation and change the permission accordingly. Use man command to explore more options about the commands. You can experiment further and discover more about the commands. And let us know your finding with a comment. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful and informative.